Chapter 14:15. Since it's like that. Yi-hin looked at Yi-wan but pointed at Patriarch Yen. The Yen family will be responsible for the Fearless Alliance's tributes every month from now on. Everyone froze, astonishment on their faces. What did it have to do with the Yen family? Patriarch Yen stared at Yi-hin in shock. He thought he heard wrong, but when he saw identical expressions on Yen Yun and other people's faces, he hastily said to Yi-hin, "Lord Azura, what do you mean? Why is my Yen family paying for the Fearless Alliance's tribute? What kind of insane logic was this? They were completely unrelated to the Fearless Alliance, so why did they have to pay for the Fearless Alliance's tribute?" Yi-hin replied indifferently, "Many years ago, the Yen family had multiple business dealings with the Fearless Alliance, and the Yen family owes a large sum of money to the Fearless Alliance. Am I correct?" 7-star frowned slightly upon hearing that. If it weren't for Lord Azura mentioning this matter, he would have forgotten about it already. Before President Fearless disappeared, she did have multiple business dealings with the Yen family, and the Yen family owed the Fearless Alliance a large unpaid debt after their last deal. However, President Fearless disappeared, and the Yen family ratted on this debt and didn't mention it again. Even when the Fearless Alliance urged them multiple times, the Yen family dismissed it with all sorts of excuses and was unwilling to repay the debt back to the Fearless Alliance. This matter was the talk of the town back then, so Lord Azura naturally knew about it. "You shameless old fart. You owe our Fearless Alliance so much money but won't even mention a lick of it. If Lord Azura didn't bring it up, I nearly would have forgotten," Big Dipper loudly shouted as he pointed at Patriarch Yen. Patriarch Yen's face flushed red, and he turned resentful. What did Lord Azura mean? Their debt to the Fearless Alliance was many years ago. What was the point in bringing it up now? Moreover, that was their own business with the Fearless Alliance, so what did it have to do with Azura? Even if Lord Azura couldn't obtain tributes from Fearless Alliance, it didn't mean he could deduct it from them. Patriarch Yen was unwilling to accept it and said to Yi-hin, "Lord Azura, isn't your decision unjust? More than that, this is a private matter between the Yen family and the Fearless Alliance." Patriarch Yen's implications were obvious. This was private business, so Azura and Lord Azura had no right to manage it, especially since they were a faction subordinate to Azura. An indescribable chilly glint appeared in Yi-hin's enchanting eyes as he slowly turned to Patriarch Yen and asked aloofly, "Are you questioning me?" Yi-hin's words, along with his bone-chilling gaze, caused Patriarch Yen to tremble and sweat to soak his forehead. Only then did Patriarch Yen realize who he was speaking to. His infuriated mind gradually cleared, and Patriarch Yen frantically shook his head. No, Lord Azura, that's not what I meant. I didn't intend to question you at all, Lord Azura." Forget it. In the end, Patriarch Yen sighed and was forced to suffer in silence. "Since the Yen family has no objections, you will do as I said and pay the Fearless Alliance's tribute in their place until you finish paying off your debt," Yi-hin said as he looked away. Chapter 14:16. The members of the Yen family were fuming with anger, but no one dared to doubt Lord Azura's decision. In the end, they furiously glanced at Yi-wan, Big Dipper, and 7-star and placed the blame on the Fearless Alliance. At the same time, in a certain corner of the manor, Lin K furtive peeked out his head like a thief and watched the ongoing events. When he saw how Yi-hin was biased beyond limits, he was rendered speechless and couldn't help but stand in silent tribute for the Yen family. The Yen family could have offended anyone but just had to offend Yi-wan. How could his 9th brother attack anyone else but them? The most suicidal part was that Yen Yun actually dared to call herself Madame Azura. Inside the manor, Big Dipper looked at Yi-wan in surprise and quietly asked, "Sis Feng, you don't also have a thing with Lord Azura, right? Otherwise, why would he help us like that?" Yi-wan's lips twitched when she heard that, and she wished nothing more than to whip Big Dipper to death. However, Yi-wan didn't have the presence of mind to waste her words on Big Dipper. Her whole mind and attention were focused on Lord Azura. Yi-hin looked at Yi-wan a moment later and asked, "Do you have any objections to this solution, President Fearless?" Yi-wan opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but ended up squeezing out, "No." After all, Lord Azura had already handled the matter to this extent. Although the Fearless Alliance had to pay a tribute, it had nothing to do with the Fearless Alliance in reality. The money for this tribute would be paid by the Yen family every month and was unrelated to the Fearless Alliance. All right. Si Yihan looked at everyone else at the venue and apathetically asked, "Does anyone have any objections?" Everyone looked at each other, bewildered. Who'd dare to have any objections? They originally wanted to watch how miserable President Fearless would end up, but who would expect the Fearless Alliance to come out completely unharmed while the Yen family suffered a large misfortune? It was only after seeing everyone's silence that Si Yihan looked away. Then he coolly said, "Let's talk about the Yen family's matter now that we've dealt with the tributes." The Yen family's matter? An odd expression crept over everyone's faces. What other matter did the Yen family have? After I left, Yen Yun of the Yen family pretended to be my wife and mobilized Azura's power and members multiple times to clear away obstructions to the Yen family, Si Yihan dryly stated. There wasn't a hint of rage in his voice, but it sent chills into people's hearts. Jiang Yen. Si Yihan turned to the red-haired man. Jiang Yen stepped forward. "How should I deal with this matter?" Si Yihan asked. Yen Yun of the Yen family pretended to be Madame Azura and audaciously mobilized Azura's power. According to Azura's principles, the Yen family should be eliminated, but this was the sole doing of Yen Yun and is unrelated to the other members of the Yen family. Hence, Yen Yun should be killed, the red-haired man said. Yen Yun's face turned ghastly pale, disbelief filling her face. "Yes," Si Yihan agreed indifferently. "I'll leave it in your hands then." Then Si Yihan stood up and left this place under the protection of many Azura members. Lord Azura, this is a misunderstanding." Patriarch Yen collapsed onto the ground like a slab of slime. Soon, before anyone could react, the red-haired man struck Yen Yun with his palm and took away her life. Azura utterly disregarded the Yen family. Even if the Yen family bore hatred toward them for this, it wouldn't even cause Azura to itch. Chapter 1417. 1417. Upon seeing Lord Azura about to leave the manor before she discovered anything, Yi Wanwan became anxious. "Big Dipper, I have something to do. I'll leave the rest to you." Yi Wanwan immediately chased after Lord Azura. "Hey, where are you going?" Big Dipper called out, but Yi Wanwan's figure had disappeared into the distance already. Sis Feng isn't planning to cause trouble by herself, right? Big Dipper scratched his head with confusion. With Sis Feng's personality, she definitely hadn't caused enough trouble yet. "My lord, do we need to deal with the Yen family?" The red-haired man, Jiang Yen, asked Si Yihan with a small frown and reverent expression. Since Lord Azura treated the Yen family so ruthlessly today, he probably provoked resentful feelings in the Yen family. Although the Yen family was like a bunch of ants to Azura, the red-haired man believed that eliminating weeds by their roots was best. Si Yihan's features were dark, and he tugged his collar with an impatient expression upon hearing that. He waved his hand and said, "No need. You can leave." The red-haired man wanted to say something else but sharply detected the danger and irritability in his lord's state, so he didn't dare to say anything and nodded slightly. Then he left with everyone else in tow. At the same time, Yi Wanwan had secretly followed them and was hiding near Lord Azura's group. Unfortunately, she couldn't clearly hear what they were saying. She saw Lord Azura waving his hand and the other people retreating. When she saw that only Lord Azura was left, her eyes brightened. "Good opportunity." Si Yihan abruptly relaxed like a bow pulled extremely taut whose arrow finally left the dock. All his vitality seemed to have been sucked out of him within seconds. His handsome brows were tightly locked together, and it looked like a layer of dense, gloomy fog that couldn't be dispersed was enveloping his features. After an indefinite amount of time passed, the dense fog eased a tinge. Si Yihan turned around, about to head to the residence deep inside the manor, when he detected something, shock flitting through his face. His back slowly turned stiff, and his relaxed expression suddenly tensed again. Yi Wanwan took advantage of this opportunity to be alone with Lord Azura and walked out from behind the bushes, leaves rustling beneath her feet. When the man saw the girl appearing in front of his eyes, his pupils evidently contracted. Yi Wanwan coughed lightly and started making conversation. Lord Azura? We meet again. Lord Azura's eyes locked onto the girl's face. His eyes were like the bottom of the ocean, secret currents rippling throughout, but they were all hidden in the fathomless ocean. The man's face was akin to the placid surface of a calm ocean, and all his turbulence was tightly suppressed. He indifferently glanced at her and asked, "Does President Bai need something?" Yi Wanwan didn't waste her words and directly said, "Lord Azura, can we speak somewhere?" After being in the independent state for so long, she never expected to personally meet a man who looked identical to Si Yihan in this kind of situation. Moreover, this man was the legendary Lord Azura. No matter what, she had to get to the bottom of this matter today. Lord Azura didn't say anything and silently walked forward. That was considered tacit agreement, right? Yi Wanwan hurriedly followed him. Chapter 14:18. When Lin Ke, who was hiding, saw Si Yihan leave, he was going to talk to him. Who knew he would see Yi Wanwan run into Si Yihan when he was about to go over? And so, he hastily slammed on the brakes and hid again while cautiously following them. Yi Wanwan followed Lord Azura into a study. Lin Ke quickly hid by the doors and leaned toward the door crack. After Si Yihan entered the room, he sat down on the broad leather chair behind the desk and peered up at her with an apathetic expression. "Do you need something, President Bai? Please speak frankly." When Yi Wanwan met his indifferent expression, a familiar twitching pain plagued her heart again. If it wasn't convenient to speak earlier due to the presence of people earlier, there was no reason for him to pretend not to recognize her now, right? Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She chuckled lightly and said, "Lord Azura really looks like a friend of mine, so I'm extremely curious." The man expressionlessly replied, "There are many similar-looking people in this world." Yi Wanwan narrowed her eyes slightly. "Oh, is that so? Then if I may ask you, Lord Azura, why did you keep defending the fearless alliance back at the manor? Isn't your elbow about to break from how outwardly you're twisting it one?" The man glanced at her calmly. "As long as I achieve my goal, the process isn't important. After the Yen family finishes paying off their debt, the Fearless Alliance's tribute will still need to be paid on time every month." In other words, his objective today was to collect tributes and money. Anything would do as long as he collected the money. When Yi Wanwan saw the man's flawless facade, the small flame in her heart ignited with a roar. "Is this guy freaking flaunting his acting skills with me? They look the exact same. I'd only believe his nonsense if I was blind." Yi Wanwan naturally wouldn't believe him that easily. "But you want to flaunt your acting skills, right?" "I've never been afraid of anyone when it comes to flaunting acting skills." Yi Wanwan idly walked toward the study step by step. "What if I don't have any money and refuse to pay?" Yi Wanwan reached the study by the time she finished speaking. She supported herself with both hands on the desk and leaned forward, pressing closer toward him. Si Yihan looked up at the girl who was an arm's length away from him. He only needed to reach out, and he would be able to embrace her. "President Bai can try," Si Yihan icily said. When she heard his threat, she cast her head down, her fingers slowly clenching. In the next second, she suddenly looked up, her bright and beautiful eyes brimming with enticing happiness. Her voice was languid as she stressed every word. "Is that so?" Yi Wanwan bent down abruptly and leaned closer to the man's ears, leaving only millimeters between them. Accompanied by her gentle breaths, her voice rang next to his ear. "Lord Azura, I definitely don't have the money. How about I give myself up as collateral to you?" The man's back grew extremely taut in an instant, and his eyes turned so dark that there wasn't a ray of light. When Lin Ke saw this scene from behind the door, he nearly exclaimed in shock and hastily clutched his mouth. Shit. This girl is too crafty. Absolutely too crafty. She resorted to this trick. Who knows whether Ninth Brother can resist it? For some reason, he pitied Ninth Brother a lot suddenly. Yi Wanwan chuckled lightly and cheerfully looked at him with hints of provocation in her eyes. Yes, she was forcing him to reveal a crack. Chapter 14-19. The girl's cunning and provocative smile were simply like poison that eroded the city wall around his heart and nearly defeated him in an instant. Numbness tingled through Si Yihan's heart. He didn't know how he suppressed his desire to embrace and kiss her. A mere few seconds felt like several centuries had passed. So? Yi Wanwan asked. Si Yihan's gaze was cool and calm as he nonchalantly glanced at her. I never perform deficit transactions. When Yi Wanwan heard this, she froze for 3 seconds before utter disbelief filled her. Oh my God! She wanted to pay with her body, and this guy actually said he would be suffering a loss. Even if you're good-looking, even if I also think I would profit? It doesn't mean you're amazing just 'cause you're good-looking. Yi Wanwan's eyes shot wide open. She was about to explode from fury and couldn't say anything but, you, for half a day. She straightened her body a moment later and uttered between gritted teeth, that's true. With your incomparable good looks, Lord Azura, I'd be the profiteer no matter how you looked at it. At the door, Lin Kei swallowed in amazement. He thought they'd be done for, but he had to bow down to Ninth Brother's self-control. Yi Wanwan simply couldn't figure out why Lord Azura and Si Yihan looked identical and were obviously the same person, yet he wouldn't recognize her or intend to reunite with her. She couldn't accept this at all. What also made her confused was that if Si Yihan really was Lord Azura and possessed such frightening power in the independent state, why did he return to China and take up position as the Si family's patriarch? It didn't make sense. Moreover, after Si Yihan returned to the independent state, didn't he know the Si family's catastrophe? Was he just going to ignore the Si family's matters? In truth, even when she first discovered everything, even when he left without a word, a thought lingered in her mind. She wanted to believe in him. However, this man's indifference and the way he looked at her like a stranger caused her desperately hopeful heart to chill completely. Yi Wanwan's fury finally reached its peak and erupted. She didn't want to speak in circles anymore and pointed at the man. Si Yihan, why did you leave without a word in China back then? Why did you pretend to not know me after seeing me today? It was as though Si Yihan was wearing an impenetrable mask on his face. He said detachedly, I'm afraid I don't quite understand President Bai's words. You don't understand? Yi Wanwan snorted. Si Yihan, why bother pretending in front of me? Do you dare to say you aren't Si Yihan? Si Yihan shook his head, calmness returning to his face. I understand. You understand? Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly. The man nodded. President Bai has mistaken me for a friend of yours. However, I've lived in the independent state since I was born and have never gone to China. I do have a few friends who do business in China, but I'm afraid President Bai has got the wrong person. You've never been to China? Yi Wanwan stared into his eyes, wanting to find a flaw in his eyes. However, Si Yihan's unfathomable eyes didn't have a single ripple and looked like the placid surface of a lake. That's right, Si Yihan said. How coincidental then that there would be two identical-looking people in this world. What's more coincidental is that my friend is also in the independent state right now. Chapter 14-20. Yi Wanwan suppressed her rage and coldly said, My friend's family turned into a mess, and he abandoned his wife, but he's having fun and enjoying himself in the independent state. What an utterly cursed imbecile. Am I right, Lord Azura? Si Yihan didn't immediately respond when he heard that. President Bai's friend is named Si Yihan, Si Yihan said a moment later. That's right. His name is Si Yihan, Yi Wanwan answered. If I remember correctly, there's a faction called the Ancient Si Clan in the independent state. Si Yihan's dark gaze landed on Yi Wanwan. There's a person named Si Yihan in the Si Clan. Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed deeply when she heard that, not understanding his meaning. I've heard that Si Yihan of the Si Clan does look very similar to me. The person who President Bai is looking for should be from the Si Clan, not me, Si Yihan said aloofly. Yi Wanwan was a bit surprised. This man's words were identical to what nameless Nye and Taoist devotee said. According to Taoist devotee, there was a person named Si Yihan in the ancient Si Clan. Yi Wanwan already suspected that Si Yihan from the Si Clan was Agio, but that suspicion abated after she saw Lord Azura today. Yet, Lord Azura said Si Yihin of the Sea clan resembled him a lot. Could it be that it was Si Yihin of the Sea clan who was Agio? And Lord Azura seriously only looked identical to Agio by coincidence? But no matter how she looked at him, everything was the same except for his hair color. Lord Azura nonchalantly said, "It's understandable that President Bai mistook me. Someone else from the ancient Sea clan also mistook me before." "Are you telling the truth?" Yi Wanwan was half in belief and half in doubt after listening to his reasonable words. It was truthfully rather simple. If Lord Azura was telling the truth, she merely needed to head to the ancient Sea clan and look for that Si Yihin. "There's no reason for me to lie to you," Si Yihin dryly said. "However, I heard that Si Yihin went to China a few days ago. If President Bai is looking for him, you should head to China instead." Yi Wanwan frowned deeply. That was easier said than done. How could she return to China? Firstly, she didn't have a permit. Secondly, she didn't have any travel documents. She would probably be detained by another country's customs before she even approached China. Moreover, even if she wanted to return to China right now, there was no way she could leave under the close watch of those old geezers from the Fearless Alliance. "How do you know Si Yihin from the ancient Sea clan went to China?" Yi Wanwan asked. "Just hearsay," he answered softly. "Which means you didn't see it yourself and aren't certain." Yi Wanwan stared at him. "You could say that," Si Yihin said. "All right, then I'll go to the ancient Sea clan and look for him there." If Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan is really who I'm looking for, I'll definitely bring him here and personally thank you together. Yi Wanwan had no choice but to go along with Lord Azura since he said that. No matter how Yi Wanwan tested this man, his expression remained calm. Even if Yi Wanwan went to the ancient Sea clan, there was no way she would find Si Yihin since he didn't have plans to return to the Sea clan anytime soon. As long as Yi Wanwan didn't find Si Yihin from the ancient Sea clan, she would definitely listen to his words and think Si Yihin returned to China. That way, Yi Wanwan would also return to China, and his objective would be accomplished. "However, I have to remind President Bai of something," Si Yihin said aloofly. "Not just anyone can enter the ancient clans of the independent state. You won't need to worry about that." Yi Wanwan intently stared at the man in front of her as she said that. If Si Yihin was really acting, then he was truly marked by the company he kept, performing more outstanding than an expert. Chapter 1421. 1421. Yi Wanwan rubbed her chin and thought, if Lord Azura lied, I'll just come back and find him. If he didn't die and Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan looks similar to him, it will prove that Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan is the true Agio, and Lord Azura's looks are a mere coincidence. However, although there weren't any holes in this man's words, Yi Wanwan still had lingering doubts. Sometimes, a woman's sixth sense didn't require any logic. What was woeful was her instincts alone were useless. This man was impervious and didn't have any flaws to exploit. Yi Wanwan stared at his expressionless face. For some reason, she dismally felt like she was an old wave that was being driven forward by a new wave and dying upon reaching a beach. Each new generation truly surpassed the previous one. However, old ginger is spicier than young ginger. She refused to give up so easily. Yi Wanwan gathered her thoughts and picked up a pen and a piece of paper from the desk, swiftly jotting down her phone number on the paper. Then she slid the note into the chest pocket of the man's suit and smiled faintly. "This is my number. If Lord Azura regrets declining my suggestion about the tribute just now, you can contact me at any time." The man subconsciously glanced down at the hand on his chest and didn't say anything, but the imperceptible arc of his eyes revealed a trace of its owner's emotions. After stuffing him with her number, Yi Wanwan clapped her hands and stood up with a wave of her hand. "Then I'll see you again someday." It appeared she wouldn't obtain any results today. She had ample time though, and it wasn't like he could run away. She first needed to think of a way to go to the ancient Sea clan and investigate. Yi Wanwan turned to leave. However, the man also stood up immediately and followed her. "Lord Azura, why are you following me? Could it be that you regret it already?" Yi Wanwan turned around and looked at the man behind her with a slight raise of her brows. "If I didn't escort President Bai, I'm afraid it'd be very difficult for President Bai to leave this place, the man replied. Yi Wanwan shrugged and didn't speak further, allowing the man to catch up so they could walk side by side. Lord Azura, that Si Yihan from the ancient Si clan really looks similar to you? Yi Wanwan asked again as she walked. The man walked very slowly and casually walked with her. When he heard her, he repeated, "There's no need for me to lie to you." The man paused briefly and continued, "President Fearless, the Fearless Alliance has been leaderless for many years and has quite a number of factions now, so you need to be prudent. Lord Azura seems to be very concerned about me." Yi Wanwan glanced at him. The man aloofly said, "I merely admire President Bai's capabilities and courage." Yi Wanwan, admire my capabilities and courage to cause trouble and insult Azura. The duo reached the entrance to the manor. Yi Wanwan was about to say something when a fleet of cars rapidly arrived and dozens of cars surrounded the manor in the blink of an eye. The leading, luxurious car stopped near Si Yihan and Yi Wanwan. Skeleton opened his door before courteously opening the door for Ji Shuran. The man, Ji Shuran, exited the car and slowly walked toward them. He was wearing an elegant light gray suit and had a faint smile on his lips. "Huh, Ji Shuran?" Yi Wanwan was startled when she recognized the man getting out of the car. "Shit, isn't this Emperor Ji? Why did he come?" Chapter 1422. Who dares to act so insolently here? The red-haired man, Jiang Yen, suddenly walked out of the manor. "None of your business." Skeleton stepped forward immediately. "You want to die?" In a flash, Jiang Yen shot toward Skeleton. An explosive sound resounded as Jiang Yan's palm clashed with Skeleton's palm, and they both staggered back a few steps simultaneously. Skeleton and Jiang Yen met each other's eyes, shock apparent. "Skeleton, withdraw," Ji Shuran lightly called as he looked at Skeleton. "Yes," Skeleton answered and immediately retreated. Jiang Yen, Lord Azura also called out indifferently from his spot next to Yi Wanwan. Jiang Yen nodded and retreated to the side. A faint and harmless smile stayed firm on Ji Shuran's lips. He first glanced at Yi Wanwan before turning to the man next to her. "You must be Lord Azura, the one whose name reverberates throughout the independent state." Ji Shuran. Lord Azura's gaze also landed on Ji Shuran. It looked like it was about to rain. Dark clouds shrouded the sky above them and cold winds sent dust fluttering in the air. The temperature around them plummeted in an instant, causing Yi Wanwan to reflexively rub her arms and shiver. "Heh," Ji Shuran chuckled lightly. "I didn't expect Lord Azura to have heard of my humble name. What an honor." The man's immortal-like looks were akin to perpetually frozen ice, and his pitch-black eyes didn't have a hint of warmth. "May I ask what advice Emperor Ji wants to give by coming here today?" Ji Shuran looked at Yi Wanwan and smiled faintly as he said, "I wouldn't dare to give any advice. I merely came by to pick up my fiancée." Yi Wanwan? Yi Wanwan didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt like Lord Azura's icy face seemed to crack for a second when he heard Emperor Ji's words. While Yi Wanwan wondered whether she saw things wrong, a thought sparked in her mind. This is a good opportunity. Since Emperor Ji suddenly came here, perhaps she could take advantage of this opportunity. Si Yihan had a terrifying possessiveness and his jealousy could submerge the entire independent state. She didn't believe he could remain unperturbed if she cheated on him in front of him. Yi Wanwan immediately pattered toward Ji Shuran's side and intimately looped her arm around his arm. That's right. He's my fiancé. He came to pick me up." When Ji Shuran saw her taking the initiative to get close to him on this rare occasion, he sent a fleeting glance at his arm being held. Meanwhile, Yi Wanwan kept observing Lord Azura's reaction while speaking. Opposite of them, his tall, lone figure stood in front of the manor's giant decoratively carved iron door with downcast eyes. Since the sky was a bit dark, his expression couldn't be clearly seen. An unknown amount of time passed, and Yi Wanwan's heart had nearly raised to her throat when he slowly looked up. His brows were wickedly arched up while the curve of his lips evoked an inexplicable sense of danger. He first glanced at Yi Wanwan before turning to Ji Shuran and saying slowly, "Is that so?" Then does Emperor Ji know that your fiancé casually gives her private number to strange men and even tries to shit? Yi Wanwan's eyes shot open and felt like a stampede of horses trampled through her heart. This guy actually sold me out. Chapter 1423. 1423. Yi Wanwan automatically looked at Ji Xiuran and saw Ji Xiuran's eyes turning a few degrees cooler. You win. Yi Wanwan ruthlessly glared at the man across from them and hastily explained to Ji Xiuran. That, was for business collaboration. I left my number purely for business collaboration. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to him. Shit, she was better off not explaining. Why did it feel like she dug herself a bigger hole with her explanation? But the problem was that she really didn't do anything. She merely wanted to test him, so why did she feel so guilty? Business collaboration? Dangerous mockery flitted through his eyes when Si-hin saw her anxiously explaining herself. An eerie, bone-chilling coldness enveloped heaven and earth, and he felt like something was about to break free of its cage. When Yi Wanwan saw his ill-boding expression, she felt an overflowing sense of danger. It's over, it's over. Her current identity was Bro Flattop, Ji Xiuran's fiancé. If this man said anything he shouldn't say and allowed Emperor Ji to know she privately went to seduce Lord Azura, she would have a volcanic eruption on her hands. Yi Wanwan was facing a crisis she'd never encountered before in her acting career. This was truly the embodiment of the saying, "Go for wool and come back shorn." Yi Wanwan ran around in circles from panic, and in the end, she had no choice but to play pitiful. She pitifully peered at the man across from her. "Boss, I was wrong. I beg you to not expose me." Si-hin felt like the turbulent emotions in his chest were about to explode, but when he saw her pitiful and pleading expression, the roaring beast that was about to charge out of its cage instantly felt its eyes softening. His fingers clenched as his eyes swept over Yi Wanwan's face. "Then I won't send you off further." He promptly turned around and re-entered the manor. Yi Wanwan relaxed dramatically when she saw his retreating figure. She clearly wanted to force him to reveal a flaw, but why did she end up being the one who almost exposed herself? It's too cruel, but she thankfully dodged disaster. Although there didn't seem to be anything amiss with Lord Azura's words just now, and he was probably trying to unsettle her at most, it actually elicited a feeling of strangeness in her. Ji Xiuran pensively glanced at her when she saw her intently looking in the direction Lord Azura went. "Xiaofeng, let's go." "Oh, okay." Yi Wanwan nodded frantically. She had to go back sooner and figure out a way to infiltrate the ancient Sea clan as soon as possible. Some distance away from them, Si-hin watched as his girl entered Ji Xiuran's car and the car disappeared from his sight. His expression was darker than it had ever been. There was some rustling nearby as Lin Kei, who'd secretly watched the whole thing, peeked out his head and timidly asked, "Ahem, ninth brother, are you okay?" Just as he finished speaking, blood spilled out from the corner of Si-hin's mouth, causing his dark face to be more chilly and terrifying. "Ninth brother." Lin Kei was spooked out of his mind. He was so angry that he spat blood out. "What? It looks like there's no way he's okay." Lin Kei couldn't help but shiver as he stood next to Si-hin and saw his frosty gaze. Chapter 1424. 1424. It couldn't be helped though, since his ninth brother personally witnessed his precious wife getting in another man's car. "Ninth brother, why don't you just bluntly admit your identity?" Lin Kei grumbled, unable to bear it anymore. Si-hin was silent for a moment before saying, "If I admit my identity, she won't leave the independent state." How dangerous would it be for Yi Wanwan to stay in the independent state? Moreover, he just confirmed that Yi Wanwan hadn't recovered her memories, so her situation would only be more dangerous in this kind of situation. "Ninth brother, then why did you tell Yi Wanwan about Si-hin of the ancient Sea clan? What were your intentions?" Lin Kei didn't understand why his ninth brother exposed his own alias. "I told her about the ancient Sea clan to erase her suspicions about me," Si-hin replied. Moreover, she would eventually discover that identity of his. Perhaps she already discovered his identity in the ancient Sea clan. He told Yi Wanwan there was someone named Si Yihin who looked like him in the ancient Sea clan, so she would definitely think that Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan was him. Moreover, the ancient Sea clan and Si Yihin truly existed, so no issues would arise even if she looked into it. Lin Ke said thoughtfully, "So ninth brother, your objective was to make Si Yihin think Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan is the true you? At that time, you only need to return to the Sea clan and inform them to tell anyone looking into Si Yihin that he went back to China, ninth brother. After obtaining this information, Yi Wanwan will definitely believe it and think you really returned to China. Then she'll leave the independent state and return to China." Lin Ke gave Si Yihin a giant thumbs up. Ninth brother, clever, truly clever. Even the higher-ups of the Sea clan don't know Lord Azura is Si Yihin. This way, the lie would be seamless. Ninth brother is truly putting in some painstaking effort. Si Yihin didn't respond to Lin Quebec. He merely didn't want Yi Wanwan to stay in this troublesome place, the independent state. Moreover, he had just returned to the independent state and regrouped Azura, so he wasn't currently strong enough to ensure her safety. Even he himself was taking a great risk. China was different though. China was an extremely powerful country, and the independent state's power couldn't seep into China, so it was much safer. Ninth brother. Say, how did Yi Wanwan become the president of the Fearless Alliance? Isn't this too strange? Lin Ke's brows knitted in confusion. Si Yihin himself couldn't understand it, let alone Lin Quebec. Si Yihin knew Yi Wanwan was indeed a member of the Fearless Alliance many years ago, but how did she suddenly turn around and transform into the president of the Fearless Alliance, by Feng, today? Additionally, Yi Wanwan hadn't recovered any of her memories. Si Yihin was contemplative. Back then, Yi Wanwan didn't reveal her identity when she met him, so he automatically thought Yi Wanwan was a normal member of the Fearless Alliance. When linked with the time Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance, went missing, perhaps Yi Wanwan was Bai Feng to begin with? Back then, Yi Wanwan thought he was a small leader in Azura, and he also thought Yi Wanwan was a small leader in the Fearless Alliance. In other words, both the leader of Azura and the Fearless Alliance thought the other was an unknown nobody. Lin Ke was shocked when he heard Si Yihin's hypothesis and asked incredulously, "Shit, ninth brother, isn't this too absurd?" Chapter 1425. Si Yihin shook his head. "It's only speculation, we don't know the truth. Unless Yi Wanwan recovered her memories, everything would be a mystery. Ninth brother, what should we do now?" Yi Wanwan ran off with Emperor Zhu. Lin Ke propped his chin up, adopting a thinking look. "Send someone to watch them." Si Yihin turned and left. Lin Ke nodded. They had to watch them. After all, someone else taking advantage of a lapse was the most fatal. You can tell Emperor Ji is a real piece of work. He's the emperor of Europe's underground syndicates and controls the entire underground empire in Europe. Plus, he's also the heir of the Ji family, one of the 4 great clans. As for his looks, they're passable, but he's too enticing to women. Ninth brother, wait for me." The blabbering Lin Ke immediately chased after Si Yihin upon seeing him leave. At the same time, at the headquarters of the Martial Arts Union, inside the Grand Hall, several elders of the Union sat on the side and looked at the man above them. President Fearless and Lord Azura have met already, but nothing seemed to have happened, an elder said while looking at the man's back. A moment later, the man slowly turned around with a glass of red wine, the color of blood, in his hand. His fingers gently swirled the glass as perverted lunacy surfaced in his eyes. Is that so? They finally met. Then, this game has just begun. If Yi Wanwan was there and saw the president of the Martial Arts Union, she would definitely be shocked out of her mind. She would never expect to be so familiar with the president's face. The elders looked at the man with smiles on their faces. The man before them was the Martial Arts Union's current president, there's one thing I don't understand. An elder looked at the man and asked, Azura and the Fearless Alliance are insignificant to the Martial Arts Union, so why does the president want the Fearless Alliance to come into contact with Azura? Do you really want to see the Fearless Alliance's attitude toward Azura, or was your purpose something else? The man sardonically smiled and said, I have my purpose. Since the president said that, the elders nodded and didn't say anything else. At the same time, as Yi Wanwan sat inside Emperor Ji's car, thousands of emotions coursed through her body. She never would have expected today's situation. One of them had to do with Lord Azura, and the other had to do with Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan. Whether it was the information revealed by Lord Azura or the information given by nameless Nye and Taoist devotee, Si Yihin of the Sea clan was the one most likely to be Agio. Of course, Yi Wanwan wasn't dumb. If Lord Azura was truly Si Yihin but didn't want to reunite with her, he'd definitely have a lot of reasons and excuses. After all, he was an adept expert at the technique of diverting one's attention. She had to keep testing Lord Azura and also had to closely look into the ancient Sea clan. There was no way she wouldn't find Si Yihin. Next time, don't come to this kind of place, Ji Xiran said from his spot next to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan was speechless when she heard that. It wasn't like she could control whether she went there. Ignoring the fact that the Martial Arts Union was watching her, Lord Azura also invited her. If she didn't come, she'd offend both sides. Of course, Yi Wanwan knew that her current identity was Emperor Ji's fiancée, so it would be better for her to be more compliant. Chapter 1426. Before Yi Wanwan could reply, Ji Xiran continued, "Back then, your fearless alliance attacked Azura and established a feud. Now, you dared to come to Lord Azura's territory all by yourself." Yi Wanwan, how am I all by myself? Didn't I bring Big Dipper, 7-Star, and the Star Destroyer group? Yi Wanwan automatically looked around her, her expression shifting at once. I seem to have forgotten about Big Dipper, 7-Star, and the Star Destroyer group? Yi Wanwan didn't respond to Ji Xiran and immediately called Big Dipper. "Sis Feng, you're too sneaky and ran off by yourself. Why did you sell us out? Thankfully we escaped too. Curly wants money from us now. He wants a $10,000 protection fee." Soon, Big Dipper and Curly's arguing and negotiating voices were heard over the phone. After confirming they were fine, Yi Wanwan hung up. Ji Xiran's gaze landed on Yi Wanwan and he couldn't help but shake his head. A leopard never changes his spots. Yi Wanwan frowned. What does Ji Xiran mean? You're still you just like back then. Although you've curbed a lot of the sharpness in your personality, your nature is still bold and daring, Ji Xiran said softly. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows as she listened. There seemed to be something unsaid in Ji Xiran's words. Before Yi Wanwan could ask about it, Ji Xiran told Skeleton, "Return to the Ji estate." "Hey, wait, take me back to the Fearless Alliance," Yi Wanwan said. "Come home with me today." Ji Xiran's tone didn't allow for objections. "Huh." Yi Wanwan's back grew taut immediately. Follow him home? It seemed reasonable for her to go to her fiancé's home, so Yi Wanwan had no reason to decline and was forced to agree. Okay. Yi Wanwan realized that attending Lord Azura's conference without Ji Xiran's permission seemed to have provoked his displeasure. It made sense though. This trip was truly dangerous. However, it wasn't a fruitless trip. If she hadn't gone, she wouldn't have discovered Lord Azura's similar appearance to Si Yihin or learned such detailed information about Si Yihin of the ancient Sea clan. After a long time, the car entered the Ji district. The Ji district was named after the Ji family, just like how the Nye family was located in the Nye district of the independent state. Yi Wanwan had known this for a while. When Yi Wanwan was about to fall asleep, the car finally stopped. What greeted her eyes was an estate that was so enormous that it extended beyond her vision. In front of the gates, 2 stone-carved dragons looked vividly alive. Each dragon was dozens of meters long and was overwhelmingly imposing. Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless at this sight. The Ji family probably owns mines, right? After Skeleton got out of the car, he opened the door for Yi Wanwan and Ji Xiran. Standing in front of the Ji estate, Yi Wanwan felt ashamed of her inferiority. There wouldn't be any harm if there weren't any comparisons. She couldn't understand filthy rich people whose families own mines. Xiran. A young girl walked out of the Ji estate. The girl had hair that reached her waist and sweet looks with a pleasant demeanor. When the girl saw Yi Wanwan standing next to Ji Xiran, her brows furrowed slightly and she asked, Shiran, this is? My friend, Ji Shiran answered aloofly. Friend? The girl was taken aback, even finding it incredulous. Ever since he was young, Ji Shiran had never had any female friends. He used to be close to Worryless Nye from the Nye family since childhood, but ever since Worryless Nye disappeared, there had never been another woman by Ji Shiran's side. Chapter 1427. 1427. Ji Shiran wasn't even fond of Nye Linglong from the Nye family, who frequently came to see him. That girl wasn't the only one. Yi Wanwan also froze in her spot. Am I not Ji Shiran's fiancé? Why did Ji Shiran call me his friend? Does this girl have some kind of relationship with Ji Shiran? This is Ji Lingfei, my elder sister, Ji Shiran explained to Yi Wanwan, as though he could tell what she was thinking. Yi Wanwan nodded. Ji Shiran actually had an elder sister? But isn't this relationship a little messy? Could it be that Ji Shiran's sister doesn't know I'm Ji Shiran's fiancé? Or was Bai Feng's relationship with Ji Shiran underground and it wasn't made public? Let's enter, Ji Shiran said lightly and led Yi Wanwan into the Ji estate before she could reply. Yi Wanwan and Ji Lingfei followed after Ji Shiran and swiftly entered the estate. After entering the estate, many servants of the Ji estate looked at Yi Wanwan in surprise. This was rather rare. Emperor Ji was famous for being impervious to female charms. This was his first time bringing a girl back to the Ji family. Soon, Ji Shiran led them into the living room. May I ask your name, sister? Ji Lingfei took a good look at Yi Wanwan. Since Ji Shiran brought this girl home, it proved that her relationship with Ji Shiran had to be unusual. Based on Yi Wanwan's looks, she was quite extraordinary. No wonder Ji Shiran hadn't visited the second miss of the Nye family, Worryless Nye, after she returned. It turned out he had a beauty as a new paramour. Ji Lingfei instinctively felt great repulsion toward Yi Wanwan at once. Ji Shiran had a good relationship with Worryless Nye since they were young, and their friendship hadn't changed despite the long years of separation. The entire Ji family, including the patriarch and madam of the Ji family, hoped for Ji Shiran to be with Worryless Nye. Especially after Worryless Nye returned to the Nye family, Madam Ji urged Ji Shiran to visit Worryless Nye multiple times, but Ji Shiran didn't listen at all. When Yi Wanwan looked at Ji Shiran, she felt like she saw displeasure in Ji Shiran's sister's gaze for some reason. I'm Bai Feng, Yi Wanwan answered with a smile. No matter what, Ji Lingfei was Ji Shiran's real sister, so Yi Wanwan couldn't abandon her etiquette and manners, especially since she was visiting their home. What did you say? Ji Lingfei shot up instantly with a deep frown on her face as she stared at Yi Wanwan in disbelief. You're Bai Feng. Are you Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance? Ji Lingfei asked in agitation. Yi Wanwan nodded. Nonsense. Ji Shiran looked at Ji Shiran with a displeased expression. Shiran, do you want to anger dad and mom to death? What kind of power is the Fearless Alliance? They're notorious in the independent state. Murder, arson, plunder. There isn't any evil they won't commit. Even several factions subordinate to our Ji family were destroyed by the Fearless Alliance. Yet you brought the president of the Fearless Alliance home today. Ji Lingfei was enraged, and her eyes were filled with disgust and disdain as she looked at Yi Wanwan. The leader of a bandit faction like that actually wanted to suck up to their Ji family now. Their Ji family still hadn't sought retribution from them for destroying the Ji family's subordinate factions. Could it be that her younger brother took a liking to this girl simply because she resembled Worryless? But wasn't it Shiran himself who didn't like Worryless back then and wouldn't agree to marriage no matter what? Chapter 1428. I brought Xiaofeng back today because I'd like mom and dad to give Xiaofeng entry to the martial arts conference, Ji Shiran said aloofly. What did you say, entry to the martial arts conference? Give it to President Fearless? Ji Lingfei laughed from her anger. Ji Shiran, are you okay? Our Ji family only got a few of such valuable tickets, yet you want the Ji family to give one to President Fearless? Yi Wanwan sat some distance away with her brows raised, a pensive expression on her face. It appeared the Ji family really didn't know about Ji Shiran's relationship with Bai Feng. It also took her by surprise that Ji Xiran brought her back because of the martial arts conference that would be held soon. Yi Wanwan heard about this martial arts conference from Big Dipper. The independent state held the martial arts conference every 3 years. The martial arts conference was held by all the major ancient clans and the martial arts union, and the rules were different every year. If a person displayed outstanding performance during the conference, they could receive invitations from the great ancient clans and become their honored guests. Yi Wanwan wasn't clear about the exact circumstances of the martial arts conference. However, it was very difficult for a lawless faction like the Fearless Alliance to obtain entry to the martial arts conference. When the Fearless Alliance was first established, it received entries once, but the Fearless Alliance never obtained any more entries to the martial arts conference after that, so the value of an entry ticket could be imagined. Yi Wanwan originally didn't intend on participating in some martial arts conference, but after careful consideration, perhaps she could enter an ancient clan after obtaining entry to the martial arts conference. Perhaps she could find Si Yihen of the ancient Si clan. However, based on the situation, the Ji family didn't seem to welcome her and probably wouldn't give her entry. Yi Wanwan always thought the Ji family knew the president of the Fearless Alliance was Ji Xiran's fiancé, but it was only after coming to the Ji residence that she realized she was clearly overthinking. They had never seen Bai Feng, let alone acknowledged her or knew she was Ji Xiran's fiancé. Xiran, entertain President Bai for now. I'm going to see if Dad and Mom have returned yet, Ji Lingfei told Ji Xiran and left the living room. Ji Xiran turned to Yi Wanwan with an aloof smile on his face and gently said, "Don't worry. I brought you back today just for a casual meal." Yi Wanwan glanced at Ji Xiran. What relaxing words. Based on Ji Lingfei's attitude toward her though, Yi Wanwan could already guess his parents' attitude toward her. Ji Xiran also never told her about coming here to obtain entry to the martial arts conference, so she wasn't prepared in the slightest. Moments later, a stern-looking elderly man led an elegant and poised woman into the living room. Ji Lingfei followed them silently. When the elderly man and woman entered the room, their gazes landed on Yi Wanwan. The woman didn't conceal her apathetic attitude at all. "Father, Mother," Ji Xiran greeted them after standing up. Yi Wanwan also swiftly stood up. These two were the patriarch and madam of the Ji family, one of the 4 great clans of the independent state, and they were also Ji Xiran's parents, as well as her freebie parents-in-law. Madam Ji nodded and sat in the chief seat along with the elderly man. Then, she carefully examined Yi Wanwan. Chapter 1429, Xiran rarely brings girls home. Madam Ji looked at Yi Wanwan and chuckled lightly. "I heard from Lingfei that you are Bai Feng, the president of the Fearless Alliance." "Yes, Auntie," Yi Wanwan replied while looking back at the elegant and poised woman. "Oh, I've heard of the Fearless Alliance's great name. It even destroyed a power that was subordinate to our Ji family back then," Madam Ji said detachedly. Yi Wanwan became slightly embarrassed upon hearing that. What kind of sin had Bai Feng committed? "Sit, President Bai, don't be polite," Patriarch Ji said to Yi Wanwan. "Okay." Yi Wanwan sat down and realized she forgot to bring a gift even though she was visiting their home for the first time. "Xiran, I've told you already that Worryless has returned to the Nye family already, yet you have all sorts of excuses every time I tell you to visit her. Don't you know you're going to hurt Worryless' feelings like this?" Madam Ji said as she turned to Ji Xiran. "Worryless Nye." Yi Wanwan was surprised when she heard Madam Ji's words. Wasn't Worryless Nye the missing second sister of Nameless Nye and the biological mother of Tang Tang? Based on what Madam Ji said though, did Ji Xiran have something going on with Worryless Nye? Worryless Nye had even birthed a child. Baby Tang Tang's biological father couldn't be Ji Xiran, right? However, Yi Wanwan thought it wasn't possible. After all, if Ji Xiran was baby Tang Tang's father, Nameless Nye would have known. On another thought, an unreliable pit digger like Nameless Nye might really not know. How could you rely on a dunce's intelligence? The 2 dunces of the independent state, Nameless Nye and Big Dipper, were idiotic to the bones already. If Ji Xiran and Worryless Nye had a relationship and had Tang Tang, and he still pursued Bai Feng, Wasn't Ji Xiaoran too much of a freaking jerk? An utter, complete piece of scum. Before Ji Xiaoran could respond, Patriarch Ji continued, Xiaoran, if you're uninterested in worryless, Nie Linglong is quite decent too. Nonsense. Madam Ji harshly glared at Patriarch Ji. You shut up. I don't permit you to intrude in our children's business. I'll only acknowledge worryless in my life. Although Linglong is alright, she still can't compare to worryless. Patriarch Ji glanced at Madam Ji and nodded. Alright, whatever you say is right. Xiaoran, you can have some fun outside, but you can't bring just anyone to the Ji home. Do you understand? Madam Ji said meaningfully. Madam Ji naturally saw the similarities between this girl's features and worryless, but she was 100 times prettier than worryless. However, she didn't want her son to be misled by looks since sincerity was much more difficult to find. Her words might sound like they were meant for Ji Xiaoran, but they were actually meant for Yi Wanwan so she would develop self-understanding and wouldn't try to play any tricks. Yi Wanwan had a stomach of stifled fury but had to control herself from erupting. This fury wasn't for herself, it was for Bai Feng. She unswervingly followed Ji Xiaoran, but now, how wonderful. Her status as his fiancée wasn't announced, yet his parents didn't approve of her. Moreover, this scum, Ji Xiaoran, had ambiguous relationships with so many women, and even baby Tang Tang might be his child. Yi Wanwan purely felt sorry for President Fearless. Blah, scum. Chapter 1430. 1430. As Yi Wanwan looked at Madam Ji and Patriarch Ji, confusion surfaced on her face. For some reason, she found these two people very familiar, as though she knew them. It was like she'd seen them somewhere before, but she couldn't recall anything for now. After coming to the independent state, Yi Wanwan found herself becoming more and more confused. Many people and places were familiar, but she couldn't locate anything in her memories after careful consideration. Yi Wanwan even started suspecting she'd been to the independent state before her memories were masked. Perhaps she was from the independent state herself. However, the portion of fragmented memories she had wasn't related to the independent state at all. In her recalled memories, she and her grandpa were in China, and Grandpa told her that her parents passed away already. Mother, I brought Xiao Feng home today because I'd like to give the Ji family's extra entry slot for the martial arts conference to Xiao Feng, Ji Xiaoran said. The martial arts conference's entry slot? Madam Ji was clearly startled. As one of the 4 great clans in the independent state, the Ji family did obtain quite a few entries for the martial arts conference and had an extra entry. However, this type of entry slot was extremely valuable, so how could it be casually given to someone else? Madam Ji didn't say anything and merely glanced at Yi Wanwan aloofly. Xiaoran, I'll figure something out to enter the martial arts conference myself, Yi Wanwan said as she turned to Ji Xiaoran. It was obvious that the rest of the Ji family didn't like her, so it didn't seem realistic for her to obtain an entry slot to the martial arts conference from them. Not just anyone can participate in the martial arts conference, Madam Ji said with a dry smile. Before Yi Wanwan could reply, a middle-aged man swiftly entered the living room and bowed to Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji. Patriarch, Madam, the 3rd Miss of the Nie family is here for a visit. Yi Wanwan was surprised. 3rd Miss of the Nie family? Isn't that nameless Nie's 3rd sister? I think her name is Nie Linglong. Yi Wanwan might look calm on the surface, but turbulent emotions stormed through her on the inside. Back when she had a video call with Tang Tang in China while Tang Tang was in the independent state, nameless Nie's 3rd sister, Nie Linglong, saw her. If I'm recognized, wouldn't I be exposed? However, it's too late for me to leave now. Yi Wanwan straightened her body. Her only solution now was to meet each crisis with an impromptu solution. Even if she was recognized, she'd be fine as long as she refused to admit it. As the middle-aged man finished speaking, a tall, slender, good-looking woman with ink-colored hair that reached her waist strolled into the Ji family's living room with 2 girls dressed as maids behind her. Uncle, Auntie, Nie Linglong sweetly greeted them while looking at Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji with a docile demeanor. Patriarch Ji nodded curtly while Madam Ji quickly stood up. Linglong, how come you didn't tell us before coming? Madame Ji grasped Nye Linglong's hand, her eyes brimming with adoration for the girl. Madame Ji liked both worryless Nye and Nye Linglong from the Nye family a lot, especially since she watched Nye Linglong grow up. Nye Linglong chuckled and said, Linglong has missed you after not seeing you for many days. I happened to pass by the Ji estate today, so I bought some things and came to visit uncle and auntie. Chapter 1431. As she said this, the two maids brought by Nye Linglong placed her presents to the side. Linglong, we haven't seen your sister, Worryless, for a long time. How come she didn't come with you today? Patriarch Ji asked Nye Linglong. Nye Linglong's eyes glinted, and she chuckled lightly. Uncle Ji, my sister has been busy keeping Tang Tang company at home lately, so she doesn't have too much free time and didn't come today. Tell Worryless to come over too next time. Since Linglong is here today, have a few drinks with Uncle Ji, Patriarch Ji said. Nye Linglong smiled and bobbed her head eagerly. She charmingly said, Great, I also happen to want to have a few drinks with Uncle Ji. An icy glint appeared in Nye Linglong's eyes. What was so good about Worryless Nye? Not only did she get impregnated by a wild man and shame the Nye family, causing them to be unable to stand proud in the independent state for many years, but she even disappeared for many years and went to China with that wild man. In Nye Linglong's eyes, a lousy tramp like Worryless didn't deserve to taint even a hair on Ji Shiran. Now, the patriarch and madam of the Ji family kept thinking about that harlot, Worryless. Thankfully, she made preparations ahead of time and got someone to pretend to be Worryless Nye. Oh right, how's Tang Tang doing lately? Madam Ji asked with a smile. Nye Linglong replied, and Tang Tang is doing very well recently. He's with sister and he's getting smarter and more well-behaved. However, he doesn't resemble sister too much. I wonder who he resembles. Tang Tang truly looked too exquisite and beautiful, but his mother, Worryless Nye, could be considered pretty at most. Both Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji's expressions shifted when they heard her words. Back then, Worryless Nye had a child before she was married, and no one knew who the child's father was. This incident not only shamed the Nye family but was also a gigantic hit to the Nye family and disgraced the Ji family as well. Back then, it was Worryless Nye herself who claimed she wouldn't marry anyone but Ji Shiran and announced to the whole independent state that she was Ji Shiran's fiancée. In the end, her child wasn't Ji Shiran's. Of course, they couldn't blame Worryless. Back then, that girl, Worryless, was sincerely devoted to Shiran, but their son didn't know to value her and caused her to leave her home for many years without returning. Madam Ji had always felt guilty about Worryless, so she couldn't blame Worryless at all. Nye Linglong secretly smiled when she saw the unhappiness in Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji's faces. The Nye family wasn't willing to bring up Worryless Nye's fault from back then, and the Ji family was the same. Hence, Nye Linglong said what she did to make Patriarch Ji and Madam Ji clearly understand what kind of trash Worryless Nye was. Then Nye Linglong turned to Ji Shiran and stood up, walking toward him. Brother Shiran, long time no see. How are you doing lately? What are you asking about specifically? Ji Shiran asked aloofly. Nye Linglong was startled. She didn't know how to respond to Ji Shiran's words. Madam Ji looked at Nye Linglong pensively and shook her head exasperatedly. Madam Ji naturally knew Nye Linglong's thoughts. Nye Linglong had never hidden her feelings toward Ji Shiran. It became especially obvious after Worryless Nye went missing. Brother Shiran, do you still miss Sister Worryless? But Brother Shiran, you know that Sister Worryless has Tang Tang already? Her heart isn't with you anymore. Nye Linglong looked at Ji Shiran pitifully. Chapter 1432. 1432. Upon hearing that, both Madam Ji and Patriarch Ji shook their heads. Nye Linglong spoke the truth. Ever since Worryless Nye was found and returned to the Nye family, she hadn't stepped foot in the Ji residence or sought Ji Shiran out for a reunion. If this was the past, Worryless Nye would have wished nothing more than to live at the Ji estate every day, and her eyes would be glued to Ji Shiran even when eating. Ji Shiran had an indescribable smile on his lips and he sent a fleeting glance to Nye Linglong but didn't say anything. On the side, Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth in fury. Ji Xiran was absolutely a piece of scum. She was sitting right next to him, but he remained intricately entangled with the Nye sisters. Thankfully, she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bai Feng, or else the top of her head would have turned into the Siberian grassland. Tang Tang is a pitiful child too. He was abandoned at home after sister gave birth to him and hasn't felt his parents' love since he was born. It would be fine if that was it, but Tang Tang still doesn't know who his biological father is. Nye Linglong's eyes looked misty, as though her heart immensely ached for Tang Tang. What deep sisterly affections you two have, Ji Xiran commented with a smile. Nye Linglong gently nodded. I'm the most grateful to Sister Worryless in this world. If it weren't for Sister Worryless, I would have died a long time ago. Of course I hope for Sister Worryless to be happy from the bottom of my heart. So it's wonderful now that Sister Worryless is home and has Tang Tang for company. Linglong, while your Sister Worryless wasn't home all these years, it was you who took care of Tang Tang by yourself and didn't even have time to find a boyfriend. It's been hard on you. Madame Ji looked at Nye Linglong with heartache on her face. It would be nothing even if I'm single my whole life for my sister's sake. Nye Linglong donned a docile demeanor. Your Sister Worryless is lucky to have a sensible and clever sister like you, Patriarch Ji said with a smile. Uncle Ji, I'm just doing what a sister should. Anyway, if it weren't for sister, I would have died already. I'm the one who's lucky to be sister's younger sister, Nye Linglong replied. Let's talk about something else. Ji Xiran's slender fingers lightly tapped the arm of his chair. Sure, whatever Brother Xiran says. Nye Linglong nodded, but her brows furrowed lightly when she caught sight of Yi Wanwan from the corner of her eyes. Who is this woman, and why is she in the Ji residence? Miss, one of the maids, the one dressed in red clothes, quietly murmured next to Nye Linglong's ears. I heard from people in the Ji family that it was Emperor Ji who brought her here. Nye Linglong's face instantly darkened, and a frightening, chilly glint surfaced in her eyes. Ji Xiran actually brought a woman home to the Ji residence and allowed that woman to dine with Patriarch Ji and Madame Ji. Nye Linglong surveyed the woman again. The woman looked a bit familiar, as though she had seen this woman somewhere else before. However, Nye Linglong didn't linger on this matter and turned around, the darkness on her face replaced by a charming mask. Sister Lingfei, who's this sister? Nye Linglong asked Ji Lingfei. Xiran's friend, Ji Lingfei explained. Friend. Nye Linglong didn't reveal anything on her face, but her eyes turned murky. Ji Xiran never had female friends. Countless women wanted to approach Ji Xiran over the years, but not a single person could even get a tiny bit close to Ji Xiran. Not to mention other people, but Ji Xiran often avoided even her and was very indifferent toward her. So how was this woman capable of being brought to the Ji residence to dine with Ji Xiran's family? Chapter 1433, Have we met somewhere before? Nye Linglong suddenly turned to Yi Wanwan and asked. Yi Wanwan's face shifted immediately. Seriously, what I'm afraid of is unavoidable. I don't think so, Miss Nye, Yi Wanwan replied aloofly with a glance at Nye Linglong. Nye Linglong's two servants instantly turned angry when they saw Yi Wanwan's attitude. Just who does this woman think she is? How dare she treat and look at the third miss of the Nye family like this? If she weren't Ji Xiran's friend and they weren't at the Ji estate, they would have definitely made her regret speaking like that. Hello, I'm Nye Linglong. Since you're Brother Xiran's friend, you're my friend as well. What's your name? Nye Linglong asked Yi Wanwan with a smile. Bai Feng, Yi Wanwan answered calmly. Bai Feng, is it? I feel like I've heard this name somewhere before. Nye Linglong looked pensive but couldn't recall where. She quickly asked, Oh right, when did Miss Bai meet Brother Xiran? I've never heard Brother Xiran mention you. Yi Wanwan was puzzled. Didn't third Miss Nye know she was the president of the Fearless Alliance and Ji Xiran's fiancée? Yi Wanwan's female intuition instinctively told her Nye Linglong was hostile toward her. Nye Linglong's every word seemed to assert her dominance, as though Ji Xiran belonged to her. Brother Xiran is normally buried in work and can't take care of himself properly. But Brother Shiran has looked more lively lately. It must be because Sister Baifeng is taking good care of Brother Shiran. Allow me to thank Sister Baifeng for taking care of Brother Shiran. The corners of Nie Linglong's lips turned up as she looked at Yi Wanwan. Fury ignited in Yi Wanwan's heart. Although she wasn't the real Baifeng or Ji Shiran's fiancée, she was currently using Baifeng's identity, so she felt somewhat indebted to Baifeng. Since she was using Baifeng's identity, how could she allow this woman to steal Baifeng's man? Moreover, with Baifeng's personality, she absolutely wouldn't allow people to trample all over her in this kind of situation. Yi Wanwan ignored Nie Linglong and turned to Ji Shiran instead. She asked, "Shiran, who is she? She seems close to you?" Before Ji Shiran could respond, Nie Linglong's expression darkened. It was so black that ink could drip from her face. Her every word secretly asserted her dominance, but this woman was even more straightforward. This woman provoked her directly. "A friend," Ji Shiran said to Yi Wanwan. "A friend?" Yi Wanwan smiled sardonically. "Since she's a friend, you should have introduced her to me earlier." The two maids next to Nie Linglong both clenched their fists tightly, rage boiling in their eyes. "Yes." Ji Shiran responded with a nod. As they spoke, the Ji family's servants entered the hall with food in tow. "Let's eat," Ji Shiran said. "Sure." Nie Linglong obediently sat next to Ji Shiran and directed a piece of meat toward Ji Shiran's bowl. Yi Wanwan wore a bright smile and picked out the piece of meat from Ji Shiran's bowl before he could pick up his chopsticks. Nie Linglong expressionlessly stared at Yi Wanwan. "Shiran, you've had so many business gatherings lately, so you should eat less meat. Here, have some vegetables." Yi Wanwan picked up a giant piece of leek and placed it into Ji Shiran's bowl. Chapter 1434, Brother Shiran doesn't eat leek, Nie Linglong interjected. However, just as Nie Linglong said that, Ji Shiran picked up the leek and ate it. "It tastes good," Ji Shiran said. A vein popped out of Nie Linglong's forehead. Just who was this woman? How could she cause Ji Shiran to act like this? However, Nie Linglong gathered her emotions swiftly and docilely looked at Ji Shiran. She gently asked, "Brother Shiran, you've never eaten leek before." "I eat it now," Ji Shiran answered. Yi Wanwan's lips turned up. It appeared Ji Shiran's desire to live was very strong. "Uncle Ji, let's make a toast." Nie Linglong stood up suddenly and raised her glass toward Patriarch Ji with a sweet smile. Patriarch Ji nodded and downed the glass. Yi Wanwan also picked up her glass and filled it. Then she stood up and said to Patriarch Ji, "Uncle, cheers." Patriarch Ji glanced at Yi Wanwan aloofly but bumped his cup with Yi Wanwan's out of politeness in the end, and they shared a drink. "Uncle Ji, the martial arts conference is about to start, and the Ji family should have enough allocated entries. I hope you can give the extra entry slot to me, Uncle Ji," Nie Linglong requested Patriarch Ji with a smile. "What? The Nie family doesn't have enough entries?" Patriarch Ji was surprised. Nie Linglong shook her head. "Uncle Ji, eldest brother, has a lot of friends on the outside, so he gave away a lot of the Nie family's entries to his friends this time." Madame Ji was exasperated. They might have doubted it if it was someone else, but nameless Nie was definitely someone who would do something like that. "Sure, Auntie will give an entry to you," Madame Ji said with a smile. Nie Linglong looked joyfully surprised upon hearing that and hastily stood up to toast Madame Ji. Yi Wanwan didn't speak at all for the rest of the meal and merely watched Nie Linglong perform. Nie Linglong finally stood up after some more casual conversation with Madame Ji and Patriarch Ji and left with her two maids. Nie Linglong's eyes indifferently swept over Yi Wanwan's figure before she left the Ji estate without looking back. Linglong is truly an extraordinary child. Madame Ji looked very fond as she said, "Back then, Worryless was Scarlet Flames Academy's legend and created all sorts of records in the Scarlet Flames Mercenary Guild. However, Linglong broke all the records Worryless created." Yi Wanwan was startled. She naturally knew about the Scarlet Flames Academy of the Independent State and heard quite a handful of stories about the Scarlet Flames Academy from Big Dipper. Rumors said that Worryless Nie, the renowned second miss of the Nie family and the second sister of nameless Nie, once studied at Scarlet Flame's Mercenary Academy and established many of the records in the Scarlet Flame's Mercenary Guild. There were countless mercenary academies in the independent state, but only 3 were famous. Scarlet Flame's Academy was one of them. In the early days, the 3 famous mercenary academies had an acrimonious relationship, and many students of the Scarlet Flame's Academy were assassinated by the 2 other mercenary academies when they went out on missions. Eventually, Worryless Nye stepped up and gave the geniuses and top students of the other 2 academies a fierce beating. She became the idol of the entire Scarlet Flame's Academy and was labeled its legend and the most heroic student of the Scarlet Flame's Academy. Chapter 1435. However, all Worryless Nye's records and honors were broken after Nye Linglong entered Scarlet Flame's Academy. Now, Scarlet Flame's Academy's legend changed from Worryless Nye to Nye Linglong, and no one had yet to break the records established by Nye Linglong at Scarlet Flame's Academy. Scarlet Flame's Academy, Yi Wanwan murmured. She felt her head swell up for some reason, and a shredding pain tore through her whole body. It was as though the presence of alcohol in her caused many tattered memory fragments to surface in her mind. In these memory fragments, Yi Wanwan clearly saw the golden-charactered sign of Scarlet Flame's Academy as well as some events that happened in the Academy. "Are you okay?" Ji Xiuran asked as he clapped Yi Wanwan's shoulder when he saw something amiss in Yi Wanwan's expression. Yi Wanwan frowned deeply. Her memories were absolutely chaotic, and she reflexively blurted out, "I think I've been to Scarlet Flame's Academy before." A glint sparkled in Ji Xiuran's eyes when he heard this. He didn't look away from Yi Wanwan for a single second. This was a symptom of memory recovery. Worryless Nye entered Scarlet Flame's Academy 2 times back then. The first time, she used the identity of Worryless Nye to enter Scarlet Flame's Academy and became its legend. The second time, she used the alias of Demon to enter Scarlet Flame's Academy and transformed from being a student to its chief instructor. However, her identity as Demon the instructor wasn't as famous as Worryless Nye, and very few people knew Demon was Worryless Nye. The second time Worryless Nye entered Scarlet Flame's Academy was a flash in the pan, and she was there in name only. She rarely made appearances at the Academy. Now, Yi Wanwan suddenly said she seemed to have gone to Scarlet Flame's Academy before, a surprise to Ji Xiuran. Everyone knew that after memory masking, the old memories were basically erased, and it was very difficult to recover them. Soon, Yi Wanwan regained her wits, and her mind was clearer than normal due to the intense pain in her head earlier. Ji Xiuran looked at Ji Lingfei nearby and said frankly, "Give the martial arts conference's invitation to me." "No." Ji Lingfei furrowed her brows deeply. The Ji family's invitations for the martial arts conference were all in Ji Lingfei's safekeeping. Ji Xiuran merely extended his hand toward Ji Lingfei. His tone didn't allow for any dissent as he said, "Give it to me." Ji Lingfei was startled. She had rarely ever seen Ji Xiuran so serious. It wasn't only Ji Lingfei though, even Patriarch Ji and Madame Ji were surprised. Ji Xiuran had never spoken to his sister, Ji Lingfei, with this kind of tone. This was the first time. Yi Wanwan was a bit embarrassed upon seeing this. She didn't care whether she went to an event like the martial arts conference or not. If obtaining an invitation to the martial arts conference would cause Ji Xiuran to have an argument with his family, she would rather not go. However, Yi Wanwan didn't dare to say anything, afraid that the conflict would worsen. Moreover, she was a fake, so the more she said, the more likely she'd expose herself, especially in front of someone like Emperor Ji. In the end, Ji Lingfei relented and turned to leave. When she returned, she threw a silver token at Ji Xiuran. It was true that Patriarch Ji and Madame Ji didn't want to give the martial arts conference's invitation to President Fearless, but Ji Xiuran had to have a reason for his staunch attitude, so they had no choice but to accept it regardless of their displeasure. Chapter 1436. After obtaining the invitation token, Ji Xiuran didn't linger at home and left the Ji residence with Yi Wanwan. Soon, Ji Xiuran had Skeleton drive them close to Fearless Alliance's headquarters and handed the martial arts conference token to Yi Wanwan. "Keep this somewhere safe. I'll tell you when the martial arts conference is being held. At that time, you can take this token and participate in the martial arts conference as the representative of the Fearless Alliance, Ji Shiran said. Thanks. Yi Wanwan nodded lightly and carefully put the token away. After Yi Wanwan returned to the Fearless Alliance's headquarters, Skeleton turned to Ji Shiran and said, Emperor Ji, did you want Miss Worryless to participate in the martial arts conference this time to whiten the Fearless Alliance's name and allow them to become a member of the coalition? Ji Shiran nodded. That's right. The Fearless Alliance is in an extremely precarious situation right now. The Fearless Alliance offended too many factions, not to even mention Azura. However, Worryless hasn't recovered her memories yet and can't respond to many affairs, so it's too dangerous for her. Skeleton looked pensive upon hearing that. If Worryless Nye could pass the assessment and become a member of the coalition, then those other factions would have second thoughts about acting against Worryless Nye and the Fearless Alliance. At the same time, inside her office, Yi Wanwan sat and watched the Sound Asleep Virus and Great White. She examined the silver token in her hand as snippets of memories of Scarlet Flame's mercenary guild surfaced in her mind again. Yi Wanwan became more and more puzzled. These memory fragments looked extremely realistic. Why would this kind of memory fragment surface in her mind if she wasn't a resident of the independent state? Could it be she really was a resident of the independent state? Or she visited the independent state before? If she really was a resident of the independent state, could it be possible that she really was the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bro Flattop? This couldn't all be a coincidence. However, the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bai Feng, clearly had parents. Meanwhile, her grandfather told her parents had passed away. What exactly is going on here? While Yi Wanwan was drowning in this tornado of thoughts, Big Dipper pushed open the door and swaggered into the office. Damn! When Big Dipper approached Yi Wanwan and saw the silver token she was playing with, his expression transformed instantly. Big Dipper's shout disrupted Yi Wanwan's contemplation. Yi Wanwan looked up and glanced at Big Dipper from the corners of her eyes with displeasure clear on her face. Didn't I tell you to remember to knock when you enter my office? Also, don't freak out like that from now on. However, Big Dipper didn't respond at all and merely stared at the silver token in her hands. A moment later, Big Dipper said, Damn? Sis Feng, you didn't seriously do that, right? Yi Wanwan's brows furrowed slightly. She didn't understand what Big Dipper was referring to. What did I do? Sis Feng, it's true that we're robbers, but you dared to steal something like an invitation to the martial arts conference? Big Dipper gave Yi Wanwan a giant thumbs up with respect on his face. I didn't steal it. Yi Wanwan looked rankled. No matter what, she wouldn't go as far as to steal an invitation. Moreover, this thing was useless even if she stole it. It had to be given to someone else. You didn't steal it, Sis Feng? Big Dipper looked doubtful. Except for the one time the Fearless Alliance was invited when the martial arts conference was first created, it hadn't invited the Fearless Alliance ever since. Their Fearless Alliance committed every imaginable misdeed possible, so there was no way they would get invited. Chapter 1437. Big Dipper didn't believe her, but Yi Wanwan was too lazy to continue explaining. Big Dipper was full of suspicion. Sis Feng, you really didn't steal it? Could it be that the coalition really invited us? Ji Shiran gave it to me, Yi Wanwan answered. Emperor Ji gave it to you. Big Dipper was taken back and astonished. He wants to humiliate our Fearless Alliance. Humiliate the Fearless Alliance? Yi Wanwan stared at Big Dipper. What do you mean? Sis Feng, think about it. Our Fearless Alliance has always been a lone wolf and never participates in the conflicts between the coalition and prison. Additionally, our Fearless Alliance has only participated in the martial arts conference once before and ended up being kicked out. Yet, Emperor Ji gave us an invitation now. I think we'd be better off not participating in it, Big Dipper said. Yi Wanwan had a cursory understanding about prison and the coalition. Many years ago, a faction named Prison single-handedly lorded over the independent state and did whatever they wanted. No other faction dared to provoke them. Later, many powerful factions formed a coalition and waged war against Prison. This war was one of the few large-scale military campaigns in the history of the independent state, and the one who proposed the coalition was the previous president of the Martial Arts Union. After many years of fighting, Prison was forced to retreat, and this was when the Martial Arts Union, which was composed of many great factions, came into power. For example, the four great clans, along with other major factions, were once members of the coalition, but the four great clans left the coalition after the war with Prison concluded and were members in name only. Meanwhile, the other factions that didn't withdraw from the coalition formed the present-day Martial Arts Union. As for Prison, it was the result of three great factions who banded together and formed a super alliance. These three great factions were Slaughter's Gate, Heavenly Hatred, and Azura. People called the alliance formed by these three great factions Prison, and it was the evilest and most vicious faction in the independent state. Back then, Azura was targeted by the Martial Arts Union since the previous president of the Martial Arts Union wanted to launch a surprise attack on Prison. After Azura was surrounded, both Slaughter's Gate and Heavenly Hatred acted and sent out an immense number of top experts to fight the Martial Arts Union to the death. In the end, both sides were weakened and wounded by the war. After Lord Azura went missing, Prison lost an ally, so they hibernated in their cave and didn't do anything big for many years. Any party who accepted the Martial Arts Union's invitation implicitly expressed an interest to join the coalition and strengthen the coalition's power to prevent Prison from launching a second war. Sis Phone, I'm uninterested in joining the coalition, but if we were to join Prison, that'd be so awesome and impressive. Big Dipper looked very excited. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything, Big Dipper sighed. However, our fearless alliance wasn't qualified to join Prison even at our peak. Sis Phone, although you're vicious, malicious, and crafty enough, you're no match for the three core factions of Prison: Slaughter's Gate, Heavenly Hatred, and Azura. We aren't on the same level as them. Moreover, the Fearless Alliance instigated a sneak attack on a branch of Azura, which is the same as declaring we're part of Prison's enemy faction. They didn't destroy us, but that's because they consider us ants. Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper and wished nothing more than to smack his face mercilessly. Who's vicious? Who's malicious? Who's crafty? Doesn't he know how to talk properly? What stung the most was that Azura didn't attack them simply because they were ants to Azura. Chapter 1438. However, even Yi Wanwan didn't expect Big Dipper's words today to become the truth in the future. The current Yi Wanwan never would have imagined the Fearless Alliance would seriously sign an alliance pact with Azura, Heavenly Hatred, and Slaughter's Gate under her leadership, allowing the Fearless Alliance to become the fourth member of Prison. Of course, that was future talk. Back in this current moment, Yi Wanwan put away the invitation token and turned to Big Dipper. Where's the Star Destroyer mercenary team? Big Dipper shrugged and replied, after leaving the manor, the three of them chased after me, asking for money. I ran away and have no idea where they are. Yi Wanwan. Although those three people loved money as much as their lives, she had an employer-employee relationship with them and had to pay the money due to them. Why the heck did they run away? Send them $100,000. The money you conned out of piece of shit last time is just enough, Yi Wanwan ordered Big Dipper. Big Dipper's expression abruptly shifted, and he rushed to change the topic. All right, Sis Phone. I came to see you for official business. Speak, Yi Wanwan said. Those old geezers want to have a meeting with you. They said something about a big subordinate faction under Azura destroying the territory of a Fearless Alliance branch. Azura's subordinate power. Yi Wanwan was taken back. Azura's subordinate power destroyed a Fearless Alliance branch. Yi Wanwan swiftly stood up and headed to the conference room level. At that moment, the conference room was embroiled in a storm of shouts and arguments. Some senior managers suggested launching destructive revenge. Azura might be a core member of Prison, but the Fearless Alliance wasn't to be trifled with either. They could die together if worse came to worst. Other senior managers adamantly protested against retaliation and wanted to just take it lying down. Azura might be strong and a member of Prison, but it was Azura's subordinate faction who eradicated our branch, not Azura themselves. How about we destroy this subordinate power? What a joke! Third Elder Li Si snorted. Don't you know what a subordinate faction is? If we attack Azura's subordinate faction, how could Azura not do anything about it? Only senior managers of the Fearless Alliance were inside the conference room, and they all belonged to different parties, so they all naturally had different opinions. As Yi Wanwan entered the conference room, the unceasing quarrels dissipated instantly, and the room was enveloped in silence. Yi Wanwan entered the conference room and swept her eyes over everyone before sliding into the chief seat without any hesitation. As she looked at the silent crowd, she wasn't fooled by the surface. Everyone here was secretly operating for their own goals, and they all wanted to find proof that she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance and kill her. Yi Wanwan learned some inside information from 7-Star already. In order to prevent the Fearless Alliance from fracturing, they all considered her a chess piece and signed an agreement that stated the first person to prove she wasn't the president of the Fearless Alliance would become the president. Her every decision, her every step, she had to proceed cautiously. Otherwise, the slightest careless mistake would lead to her ruthless demise. All of these higher-ups considered her a chess piece and wanted to use her to advance their positions. But none of them knew that she also considered these higher-ups and the entire Fearless Alliance chess pieces. It wouldn't be so easy to test whether she was the true president of the Fearless Alliance. Chapter 1439. 1439, Speak. Yi Wanwan aloofly swept her eyes over Third Elder and the others. President, you just returned from Azura's conference. Didn't something happen during the conference? An elderly man said meaningfully as he turned to Yi Wanwan. These higher-ups were indeed shocked when they learned Yi Wanwan returned from Azura's conference completely unharmed. Lord Azura actually didn't do anything to this woman despite his personality. But this was good too. If Yi Wanwan seriously died in the hands of Lord Azura, then their detective game would probably have to end. Since Yi Wanwan didn't die, they could continue to search for evidence that Yi Wanwan was pretending to be the president of the Fearless Alliance. What? Did you think something would happen at the conference? Yi Wanwan asked coldly while staring at the elderly man. The elderly man chuckled lightly and shook his head but didn't say anything. Big Dipper told me that a branch of the Fearless Alliance in the Northern District was destroyed by a subordinate faction under Azura. Yi Wanwan got straight to the point. An ineffable smile spread across Third Elder Li Si's face as he nodded. President, the branch in the Northern District had some monetary conflicts with a subordinate faction under Azura, and that subordinate faction relied on the fact that it was under Azura's protection and eradicated our branch. I heard some members of Azura even took part in it. Yi Wanwan was pensive. According to the Fearless Alliance's personality and style, especially President Fearless, this was the same as being ruthlessly slapped on the face. How could they tolerate such shameful humiliation? Who cared whether you were Azura or prison? If you provoked the Fearless Alliance, they'd simply drag you to death with them. Even if they weren't on the same level and couldn't mutually perish with you, they'd at least disgust you somehow. We're stuck in an argument right now. Some higher-ups think that because it's just a branch, its destruction is no big deal. But there are also some higher-ups who think of this as shameful humiliation and say we should retaliate. Of course, we'll allow you to make the final decision, President, Third Elder said with a mocking smile while watching Yi Wanwan. All the senior managers present turned to Yi Wanwan. Regardless of what she decided, it would be fatal to this woman. If Yi Wanwan chose to do nothing, it'd be the same as going against the Fearless Alliance's beliefs and doctrine. It also absolutely wasn't President Fearless style. However, if she did decide to retaliate, Azura would definitely interfere. This would cause the matter to escalate detrimentally, crushing the Fearless Alliance. No matter what she chose this time, she wouldn't be able to avoid disaster. Yi Wanwan remained silent. After an unknown amount of time passed, Yi Wanwan ended up deciding that she had to seek revenge for this matter. And she had to personally lead the group. First of all, she could assert her dominance. Second of all, she could test Lord Azura, who looked identical to Si Yihan. She'd like to see whether Lord Azura would attack if she personally led the Fearless Alliance to eradicate a subordinate faction under Azura. 7-star, Big Dipper, what do you think? Yi Wanwan looked at the two people nearby. Sis Feng, it goes without saying. We're fighting them for sure. We're gonna beat those bastards, till they're dead. How dare they harm a branch of the Fearless Alliance? Big Dipper looked incensed as though he wanted the whole world to be encased in chaos. His answer was just as Yi Wanwan expected. No wonder a fool like Big Dipper was assigned to an important position by Bro Flattop. It was probably because they were birds of a feather. Chapter 1440. Yi Wanwan looked at 7-star. What do you think, 7-star? Don't fight them. 7-star calmly said, the faction subordinate to Azura isn't weak and has a decent relationship with Azura. I've even heard they have some connections to Lord Azura himself. If we do retaliate, Azura will definitely act as well, and will be in a very dangerous situation. Giving up a branch is no big deal. Yi Wanwan nodded lightly after 7-star finished speaking. She swept her eyes over everyone and announced, gather the members immediately. I'll personally lead the group to eliminate that faction under Azura. Silence descended on the conference room. Aside from Big Dipper, everyone else stared at Yi Wanwan in astonishment, and 7-star had a deep frown on his face. Even the higher-ups who clamored to seek revenge reacted the same way. Who didn't know how to boast impressively? However, it was an entirely different matter if they seriously had to act. President, utter nonsense. What should we do if Azura attacks? A higher-up looked at Yi Wanwan, all worked up. That's right. In consideration of the Fearless Alliance's strength and how the Northern District is fairly close to us, it's truly disadvantageous for us to attack on a large scale. You must reconsider carefully, President. Don't indulge in momentary gratification. Various higher-ups all inputted their opinions and thought Yi Wanwan knew jack shit and was playing with the Fearless Alliance's future. What? Yi Wanwan snorted. I heard how intense your argument was earlier and a lot of people cried for revenge and a fight. Yet you're all opposing me now? It's easy for you to just open your mouth and ask for revenge, right? But you're all cowards like old dogs when it comes to actually doing anything. Many of the higher-ups' expressions shifted. This woman was insulting them as old dogs in this roundabout way. No, this wasn't roundabout. She was pointing at them and insulting them. President, it's inadvisable to involve a large number of people when going to the Northern District. Otherwise, it's the same as revealing ourselves to the whole state, and that subordinate faction will also make preparations in advance. If they team up with Azura and set up an ambush, we'd basically be willingly walking into a trap, a higher-up said with a snort. Did this damn woman really think she was the president of the Fearless Alliance? If they didn't sign an agreement before and didn't find evidence proving she was pretending to be the president, she wouldn't be able to skip and jump about the conference room, spouting nonsense like this. Yi Wanwan glanced at the elderly man who spoke and snorted. Your words are reasonable, of course. It isn't suitable to engage in great fanfare for this fight. I only need 100 people. 100 people? When everyone heard Yi Wanwan's arrogant words, Big Dipper and 7-star were startled, let alone the other higher-ups in the room. She wanted to seek revenge on a subordinate faction under Azura with a mere 100 people? The destroyed Fearless Alliance branch in the Northern District had more than 1,000 people. Even a branch with 1,000 people was destroyed, yet she wanted to take only 100 people to seek revenge. Ah, great. The president is truly the president. We naturally can't compare to you. Since you've spoken, then please lead 100 people to seek revenge, President, an elder said with a string of laughter. He'd like to see what kind of price this woman was going to pay for her ignorance and arrogance. If she truly was the president of the Fearless Alliance, perhaps she could really eradicate a subordinate faction under Azura with a mere 100 people. But was she? Chapter 1441. 1441. Yi Wanwan turned to 7-star and Big Dipper and said, Go and pick out the 98 most elite members of Fearless Alliance. Big Dipper was taken back and asked, bewildered, Sis Feng, Shouldn't I pick out 100 people? Why are we only picking 98? Yi Wanwan glanced at Big Dipper. Aren't you a person? Before Big Dipper could respond, 7-Star said, you and I count as 2 people. Big Dipper thought about it and nodded. I see. Meeting adjourned. Yi Wanwan stood up from the chief's seat and strolled out of the conference room without a backward glance. Big Dipper and 7-Star followed after Yi Wanwan. Sis Feng, are we really going to attack Azura's subordinate faction power? 7-Star asked with a slight frown as he caught up to Yi Wanwan with large strides. This decision was a bit too brazen in 7-Star's point of view. She wanted to seek revenge successfully with a mere 100 people. It wasn't realistic at all. There was an extremely high possibility that this decision would lead to the utter demise of the 100 members she led there. I have my own plans, Yi Wanwan replied. 7-Star, are you becoming timider? Big Dipper glanced at 7-Star. When has the Fearless Alliance ever been scared? This has nothing to do with being scared, 7-Star said. Before Big Dipper could say anything, Yi Wanwan interrupted them. Go and choose the people first. Since Yi Wanwan made her decision already, 7-Star wasn't going to say anything more. He went with Big Dipper to choose the elite members. In the evening, the 98 people were all chosen. Each person was an elite member of the Fearless Alliance. After they learned they were about to go to the Northern District and seek revenge on Azura's subordinate faction, they were all somewhat unwilling. They felt like they were marching to their deaths. However, this was the president's orders, so they had no choice but to obey. Evening. Fearless Alliance's headquarters, inside Yi Wanwan's office, Virus yawned and propped its head on Yi Wanwan's legs, looking at Yi Wanwan with its breathtaking eyes. Yi Wanwan ascertained that no one else was around before taking out her phone and checking her QQ messages. Gong Su, Brother Yi, where did you travel to? Space? Why aren't you back yet? Luochen, are you online, Brother Yi? Han Xinyu, Yi Bai, where did you go lately? I haven't gotten any news from you at all and can't reach you by phone. Please call me back if you see this message. After reading through the messages, she flicked her finger and erased every message. The consequences were inconceivable if someone else saw these messages. Yi Wanwan rarely messaged even her mother, Liang Wanjun. She only occasionally reported her safety and asked about her mother's well-being along with Yi Mufan's and her father's recent situation. After deleting the messages, Yi Wanwan called Nameless Nia. Hello. Nameless Nia's voice resounded from the phone. Meet up with me. I need you for something. Yi Wanwan got straight to the topic. Sister Famous Yi? Meeting up isn't a problem, but you need to pay the hiring fee for the Star Destroyer mercenary team first, Nameless Nia said urgently. I sent you the address already. We can settle the bill then. Yi Wanwan hung up after saying that. Then she stood up and gave Virus and Great White a round of scratching and petting before leaving the Fearless Alliance. A tea house in Yun City, Yi Wanwan waited for more than an hour before Nameless Nia entered with the dust of a long journey. Here, Yi Wanwan called at him. Nameless Nia looked around for a moment and saw Yi Wanwan. He strode toward her. Chapter 1442, Sister Famous Yi, why did you call me here so urgently? Also, Curly from the Star Destroyer mercenary team said you ran away without paying the hiring fee. It's his hard-earned money. Sister Famous Yi, you can't duck out of paying, Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes. Do I look like someone who doesn't pay? Something happened last time, so I didn't have time to pay. That's true. I trust Boss Famous' financial abilities. Nameless Nia took a sip of his tea and leaned close to Yi Wanwan. Boss Famous, say, do you want to pay by card or cash? A check also works. Why are you in such a hurry? I have another business deal for you. Do you want it? Yi Wanwan smiled faintly. Business deal? Nameless Nia was startled. What business deal? A mercenary business deal, of course. Why else would I call you? Yi Wanwan said. I thought you came to repay your debt, Boss Famous. You just can't help but mention money every 3 sentences. I have a need for manpower right now. If you accept this order, I'll pay for everything then and won't leave out a single cent. If you perform well, I might even pay more. How about it? Yi Wanwan asked with a smile. Boss Famous? What are you planning to do with the hired mercenaries? Nameless Nya inquired. A clan offended me, so I'm planning to teach them a lesson, Yi Wanwan replied. Sure. Nameless Nya nodded frantically and looked at Yi Wanwan. Boss Famous, you found the right person by seeking me out for this type of thing. We're professionals. However, who do you plan to hire, Boss Famous? I have many mercenary teams under me. Nameless Nya took out a pen and a piece of paper and handed it to Yi Wanwan. Boss Famous, were you satisfied with the Star Destroyer mercenary team's services last time? If you're satisfied, please give 4 stars. If you're very satisfied, please give 5 stars. If you're unsatisfied, please give 1 star. We're all corporation style and need to have performance reports and evaluations. Yi Wanwan, the longer I live, the more I see. Vicious mercenaries actually need their customers to give them star ratings. Yi Wanwan had no choice but to helplessly draw 5 stars on the paper and give the pen and paper back to Nameless Nya. Can we talk official business now? Yi Wanwan sighed. Sure. Nameless Nya nodded. What kind of mercenary team are you looking for this time, Boss Famous? Both T1 and T2 level are good. T1 is a bit more expensive while T2 is more economical and cost-effective. How about you use the Star Destroyer mercenary team again this time since you're so familiar with them now? However, Yi Wanwan shook her head after listening to Nameless Nya's non-stop prattling. She stared at Nameless Nya and smiled. This time I want to hire you. Nameless Nya was taken back. Hire me? After he regained his senses, he shook his head frantically. Boss Famous, what are you saying? I'm a boss myself. The boss doesn't get hired. Yi Wanwan was rendered speechless. He was nothing like how he was when he didn't have money to eat back in China. He had grown a tough pair of wings after coming back to the independent state. He wouldn't even accept being employed anymore. You can hire Spray of Flowers, Taoist Devotee, Brick-Moving Foreigner, and Dead Man. How about that? They're super T1 level mercenaries. They might be a bit expensive, but don't worry. They're expensive for a good reason. Every cent you spend will be worth it. Nameless Nya advertised. Chapter 1443. Yi Wanwan rested her chin on her hand and thought about it. Yi Wanwan said, Then, I'll hire Spray of Flowers. Oh, Boss Famous, it's like this? Spray of Flowers went out on a mission and isn't free in these next few days, Nameless Nya answered honestly. Yi Wanwan, then I'll hire Dead Man, Yi Wanwan said. Dead Man and Spray of Flowers went out on a mission together. Nameless Nya smiled faintly. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched as she looked at Nameless Nya's infuriating face. Was he playing with her? He was advertising them so enthusiastically moments ago and now he went back on his words and said they went on a mission? But Brick-Moving Foreigner and Taoist Devotee are both available. You can't underestimate those 2 people, Boss Famous. They're my most beloved employees. If we weren't so close, I definitely wouldn't recommend them to you, Nameless Nya said. True, those 2 people were fine too. Yi Wanwan nodded and agreed in the end, hiring both Taoist Devotee and Brick-Moving Foreigner. Yi Wanwan naturally trusted their strength. Unfortunately, Spray of Flowers and Dead Man were on a mission already, or else she would have hired all 4 of them. I'll take both Taoist Devotee and Brick-Moving Foreigner, Yi Wanwan said. Hee, Boss Famous, how about you pay a down payment first? Nameless Nya said with a laugh while staring at Yi Wanwan. I'll pay it all after the mission finishes. What, are you afraid I'll run away? Yi Wanwan said instead. Nameless Nya had no choice but to relent in the end. He couldn't do anything if Yi Wanwan didn't want to pay right now. Yi Wanwan stood up and left the tea house after her discussion with Nameless Nya. At that moment, Big Dipper and 7 Star had already led the chosen elite members and departed for the northern district ahead of Yi Wanwan. As people said, the cover of the night was perfect for killing. They took advantage of the darkness and led 100 people toward the northern district to attack the subordinate Azura faction while they were unprepared. A little while later, Brick-Moving Foreigner and Taoist Devotee met up with Yi Wanwan near the tea house. Boss Famous, have you eaten shit yet? Brick-moving foreigner walked toward Yi Wanwan with a bright grin that revealed his pearly teeth. Yi Wanwan's lips twitched. No. Have you eaten yet? I've eaten shit. Brick-moving foreigner nodded cheerfully. Yi Wanwan, she really didn't want to continue this disgusting topic. Could it be that this idiot still didn't know the meaning of shit? Wasn't this too illogical? However, on the other hand, Yi Wanwan could understand it. For a mercenary at brick-moving foreigner's level, even if he interacted with other people and asked if they ate shit yet, other people probably didn't dare to respond or explain the true meaning of eating shit. Boss Famous, I didn't expect you to also come to the independent state. I'll definitely need to treat Boss Famous to a good meal of shit after this mission ends. Eat it yourself? Thanks, you're too polite. I'll treat you to a meal later. Yi Wanwan squeezed out reluctantly. Yi Wanwan didn't dare to tell brick-moving foreigner the true meaning of eating shit though. If he learned he'd been deceived by Taoist devotee and spray of flowers to this extent, it was very possible that he'd turn on them immediately and beat them to death. He definitely would. Boss Famous, Captain said it's a patrician family in the northern district? Taoist devotee asked. Yi Wanwan nodded and told them the whole story. Boss Famous, you're actually pretending to be the leader of the Fearless Alliance. Brick-moving foreigner looked at Yi Wanwan with astonishment. Chapter 1444. So what? Boss Famous has even led us to pretend to be the Rose of Death. Taoist devotee interjected. Carefully thinking about it, that was true. They didn't expect Boss Famous to have this kind of special ability and have the guts to masquerade as anyone. After some casual conversation, Yi Wanwan drove them toward the northern district. It wasn't until nightfall that they reached the northern district of the independent state. Different from Yun City, the northern district was considered the countryside, and it wasn't an overstatement to say this place was nearly devoid of humans. Big Dipper and 7-Star were waiting for Yi Wanwan already. When they saw Yi Wanwan getting out of the car, they walked toward her. Taoist devotee chuckled awkwardly and said, Boss? President Bai, it's not good to come here on a quest for revenge with just this handful of people, right? Yi Wanwan glanced at Taoist devotee. If I brought enough people, why would I need you here? Taoist devotee was startled. That's true. Sis Feng, who are these two? 7-Star asked with a furrow of his brows while examining Taoist devotee and brick-moving foreigner. Friends, Yi Wanwan replied. The mercenaries under nameless Nye rarely appeared in the independent state unless they were on a mission. Plus, they were usually very secretive, so most people didn't know their identities. The first rule of a mercenary was to conceal their own identity well. If they couldn't even conceal their identity, how were they qualified to be a mercenary and accept any missions? Taoist devotee and brick-moving foreigner were particularly unknown. What's the situation? Yi Wanwan asked 7-Star and Big Dipper. Sis Feng, it doesn't look good. Big Dipper looked very solemn as he walked toward Yi Wanwan and explained the current situation to her. The subordinate faction under Azura is the Yuan family. The Yuan family's headquarters is a dozen or so kilometers from our current location. But they seem to have detected us ahead of time, and nearly 20 brothers are seriously injured. Several members of the Fearless Alliance collapsed onto the ground just as Big Dipper finished speaking, and waves of laments and moaning left their mouths, as though they were suffering from intense pain. As Yi Wanwan looked at the fallen people, she looked calm on the surface, but she was incredibly shaken on the inside. Before Yi Wanwan could say anything, blood started pouring out of these people's eyes, nose, ears, and mouths. She could even see long, snow-white worms wiggling. Goo poison one! Big Dipper shouted, his expression changing drastically. Goo poison? Yi Wanwan's lips twitched slightly. Goo poison? Why don't you say you're ambushed by Iron Man, Spider-Man, or Batman's? It's goo poison indeed. Taoist devotee and brick-moving foreigner turned to each other in astonishment. The Yuan family also knew about goo poison. On their team, the only one with a mastery in goo poison was Dead Man, but Dead Man wasn't there right now. If it's truly goo poison, it's a bit tricky, Taoist devotee said. Yi Wanwan was startled when she saw Taoist devotee's reaction. Could it be that goo poison really existed in this world? Yi Wanwan originally wanted to help the Fearless Alliance members up but was pulled back by Taoist devotee. He shook his head at her. Soon, the sound of howling disappeared and the Fearless Alliance members turned ghastly pale and reached the end of their lives. This scene caused Yi Wanwan's mind to turn into an utter mess. She'd never seen such an incredulous scene in her whole life. Yi Wanwan was about to speak when she felt a weird itching on her neck, as though ants were crawling over her skin. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.